What's going on? It's Suck and I'm back with a brand new video on SuperDuprTech. In today's video, I shall be reviewing the brand new 2022 iPad Air. I have already uploaded videos testing and comparing the iPad's performance to other devices and showing what its cameras are capable of capturing. These videos will be left linked down below in this video's description. Also, we are on the road to 5,000 subscribers, and if you are new around here, I must ask you to hit the subscribe button, clicking the bell to be notified when these videos go live. But without any further ado, let's hit the titles. So first up, let's talk about the design of this iPad Air. Yes, it follows the same design style as we've had previously, which is no doubt a good thing, with it having no home button and a single-sized bezel around the perimeter of the iPad. The volume buttons are on the right side of the device, and below them rests the second generation Apple Pencil. And like we've had with the fourth generation iPad Air, this iPad Air also comes equipped with Touch ID built into the power and lock button on the top of the iPad. While this iPad Air comes powered by the M1 system on a chip, the port will only support USB 3.1 Gen 2 speeds, which means maximum speeds of up to 10 gigabits per second, which is interesting as we do not get Thunderbolt speeds here like we do with the iPad Pro, which means that transfer speeds will be slower on this iPad. This design with its flat sides looks very much like the 11-inch iPad Pro, which I'm all for. The iPad Air is available in space grey, pink, starlight, purple and blue in either 64 or 256 gigabytes of storage. You may have noticed that there are speakers on the top and bottom of the device, although unlike the quad speaker array that we have on the iPad Pros, the iPad Air only has a single speaker on both the top and bottom of the device. So let's take a little listen to how these speakers perform.
Family all of a sudden, like, my mum don't know your mum, stop telling man you're my cousin. Hey, I'm trying to get paid, take money, cash checks. You see the set, that's Lash, that's Dex. Young C, Young Shorty, Milcavelli, white bricks, true religion on the telly, it's me. Wiz got the house full of freaks, that's why I haven't been around for a week. Yeah. I said I feel invisible. It's 100 niggas in the spot. I will come boom. It's 85 just to walk on. I don't talk to these niggas. I've been trying not to go off these things. I don't think you wanna let me research.
The display on the iPad Air has not changed since the 4th generation model, which while I would hope to see continued improvements, at times it is something that is not sustainable. It measures 10.9 inches diagonally and has a resolution of 2360 by 1640, meaning it indeed has a Retina class pixel density at 264 pixels per inch. It also has a maximum brightness of 500 nits. It's still an IPS LED display and not an OLED, meaning that the blacks are not pure black and slightly washed out. There isn't really any backlight bleed unless you're looking at a purely black image in a dark room. This iPad Air comes equipped with Apple's M1 system on a chip, which means it's the same as that found in the iPad and MacBook Pros and select MacBook Air models, meaning it has an 8-core CPU with both 4 performance and 4 efficiency cores, along with an 8-core GPU. Simply put, it's a powerful device which no doubt will last a very long time and will be able to handle a lot of tasks that you may throw at it. Hopefully in the next few years, Apple can make improvements to iPadOS to allow it to take full advantage of this powerful chip. It has a 16-core neural engine which is able to take some of the workload off of the CPU or GPU. It also comes equipped with 8GB of RAM. Playing games on this iPad is extremely extremely enjoyable. Unlike the smaller display found in the iPad mini, this display feels just about right and provides a great portable gaming experience. Sure, I would love to have the higher refresh rate display of the Pro iPads, but it's a feature that I can see remaining a Pro exclusive for quite some time. Also, I love that I can pair an external controller such as my Sony DualSense 5 controller. When it comes to prolonged gaming sessions, the iPad Air handles it like a champ. While charging and gaming at the same time, the device does tend to get warm to touch, but it does not get quite as hot as the iPad mini. I think the larger chassis of the iPad Air does wonders when it comes to heat dissipation. The iPad Air has a 12 megapixel rear camera with an aperture of f1.8, which is decent. It's capable of recording 4K video, which produces some good stills and video footage in favourable lighting conditions. But as soon as the light starts to disappear, you really do not want to be using the cameras on this iPad, as they will then tend to produce a lot of noise and the images will look quite grainy. The rear camera does not have a flash paired to it, which is weird, as both the iPad Pros and the iPad mini models come with one. Now this would of course help in some situations when the light is almost non-existent. The front FaceTime HD camera supports Apple's center stage feature for FaceTime, which is great, meaning the front camera has a 122-degree field of view and crops in to follow subjects around during these video calls. This camera, however, has an aperture of f2.4, which, as you can see, when there is little to no light around, it does tend to struggle. Well, struggle is quite an understatement here, which I find to be quite disappointing. But if I had to choose between losing center stage, I would rather have it. It's very rare to find someone using an iPad to take selfies, especially when there is little to no light. But FaceTime is something I find myself doing on all iPads for that matter. Now I've uploaded a video showcasing some of the images and video footage that I got from this iPad Air, and you can find it in the card in the top right corner, and you'll also be able to find it linked down below in this video's description. This iPad Air supports the Wi-Fi 6 standard and not the newer Wi-Fi 6E standard, which is a little disappointing, but let's be real, most people do stick with the router that is provided by their internet service provider, and most will still not provide a Wi-Fi 6 connection. But given that this iPad Air is due to be held by people for many years, with the adoption of Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E, I can see that this could become an area of frustration for many potential buyers. Also, this iPad is available in a cellular model, which does support the sub 6 GHz 5G, so no ultra wideband here, but it's nice to see 5G on yet another iPad model. It's also worth noting this iPad Air loses the GSM radio, so if you are traveling to countries which are not quite as developed, then you may want to opt for an iPad Pro instead, as it has the most connectivity options out of all the iPads. So now we could talk about the operating system, and yes, while I do love iPad hardware, their software has been, to say lacking over the last few years is once again quite the understatement. Yes, improvements across the board are expected with every time Apple release an update, and it should never go backwards, but fundamentally it feels as though it doesn't matter which iPad you pick up, if that being the entry model or the higher end Pro models, the software experience is identical, which is great in many ways. But it doesn't matter if the iPad has a desktop class system on a chip powering it or an iPhone chip from a few years ago. The experience is identical. What's more weird here is the iPad Air has the same system on a chip found in the higher end iPad Pro models. So from a software perspective, other than the fluid ProMotion display, the iPad experience is going to be relatively identical. Let me get this out the way. The iPad does not have a native calculator application, and nor does it have a weather application. And here's a weird one, it does not have the wallet application, which I find find to be slightly weird. I mean, when traveling, I typically keep all my tickets and passes within the Wallets app, and I think you should be allowed access to this at least within Control Center. Now, while I'm not asking for my credit and debit card details to be held on an iPad's Wallet app, I do think it would still be handy to be able to access my tickets from all of my devices, Macs included. A bit of backstory: I typically hotspot to my iPad whilst I am traveling on the train, keeping my iPhone in my bag on charge, and when I'm asked for my ticket, it would be convenient to swipe down and just be able to access my tickets from the Control Center. Multitasking on this iPad with its larger display is much better than doing that on an iPad mini, that's for sure. But that doesn't really say much. I would love to have support for windowed applications, even if that means needing a magic keyboard. I think it would be cool to have the option. While some tasks may be completed on an iPad Pro slightly faster than, say, an entry iPad or even the iPad mini for that matter, I still feel there needs to be some sort of software differences to take advantage of the different screen sizes and the performance differences that we're seeing across the board. Honestly, windowed multitasking would be great on these larger displays. I love the improvements that have been made to Spotlight search. It makes being able to find documents, photos with people, applications, hell, even searching the web before you actually search the web is easier when using Spotlight. I like that whatever I search for is done securely and that I'm not then bombarded with advertisements when I do eventually access the internet. At the end of the day, it's an iPad, which means it has the most robust software experience of any tablet going. Yes, fundamentally there are some limits, but most are aware of these limitations before buying. Yes, it would be nice to be able to do more PC or Mac centric things on the iPad, but if we'll ever see that, who knows? Who knows? It has great hardware and feels very well built, which once again is to be expected. I think for its asking price of £569, it is a bit of a hard pill to swallow, but when compared to the 11-inch iPad Pro, for most people, the iPad Air hits a sweet spot. If you need the Thunderbolt port, the higher storage options, the cameras or Face ID, a brighter, slightly larger ProMotion display, or louder speakers, then yeah, the option to spend £200 more on that iPad Pro does exist for those options, and Apple will happily sell this to you. But I think you can't go wrong with the iPad Air, plus it's available in more colour options. So there you have it, the capable but crippled, best bang for the buck iPad Air. If you're new around here, then be sure to subscribe clicking the bell icon to be notified when a new video goes live. Why not hit me up on my social media, Instagram and Twitter, links to which can be found down below in this video's description. I will also leave live affiliate links down below in this video's description to where you can purchase this iPad. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care and have a good one.